So my country's Sweden. In 1917, the democratic reforms beginning the parliamentary democracy. From 1932 to 1976, the Social Democratic Party dominated, winning 12 out of 13 elections between 1932 and 1973. And the development of the welfare state, Sweden's welfare state significantly developed throughout the early 20th century, with major post-war expansions occurring between 1945 and 1975, including integrating pension plans into a government-administered system, universal benefits that provide old age pensions, and health insurance. They focused on employment and training and addressed housing needs through government initiatives, also expanding research and education. They were neutral during World War II and aided refugees and strengthened industries. So them staying neutral during World War II kept them, like, their economy booming, especially like not having to pay for bullets and just a lot of production, but they were the ones producing everything, and that's how they made a lot of their money. I'll further address the Union and NATO later. So Sweden has a king, but it doesn't have any political power, and it's clearly, like, I mean, not clearly, completely ceremonial and representative. Right now it's King Carl Gustav the 16th, and he's the longest reigning king of Sweden history. Their primary part of government is parliamentary monarchy, aka the Riksdag, is the primary representative body making decisions and electing prime ministers. The Riksdag holds legislative powers. Sweden's a multi-party system. Elections are held every 4 years, and parties must receive a certain percentage of national votes to get in the seats of the Riksdag. Sweden is also a unitary and decentralized state with local governments in certain areas. Sweden is based off a constitution, and the constitution is based off 4 fundamental laws. The instrument of government, the Act of Succession, the Freedom of Press Act, and the Riksdag Act. The instrument of government describes how a country is governed, outlines the freedoms and rights of the Swedish citizens, and defines how public power is divided. The instrument of government was enacted originally in 1634, changed to reduce the power of the king to none in 1974. The Act of Succession just kind of says who's going into the seat of, or the throne of the king. And like I was saying earlier, this is the longest reigning king, so it hasn't changed for like nearly 20 to 30 years. The Freedom of the Press Act is almost identical to the First Amendment, but this act gives you the right to expression, the right to public. This is the only difference. The right to public access information, that like any official record. You also have the you can also protect your own source. But it does have limitations when it threatens national security, if it's defamation or hatred speech. This was also the first legislation that would guarantee your freedom of speech. It was first passed in 1766. Even though I said there's 4 fundamental laws, the Riksdag Act, which is the last part of the Constitution, truly isn't a fundamental law, but it wasn't enough of a law to be amended. It outlines the rules and procedures of the Swedish Parliament. The Act covers provisions on the organization and work of the Riksdag, including elections to the Riksdag, the work of the Riksdag, and the tasks of the Riksdag. It was a fundamental law until 1974. So there's a left-right political divide. The left wing is led by the Social Democrats, often allied with the Left Party and the Green Party, which focus on a strong welfare state, progressive taxation, climate action, and workers' rights. The right wing consists of the moderates, the Christian Democrats, the liberals, and in the increasingly the Sweden Democrats, which stand for tax cuts, privatization of services, stricter immigration policies, and law and order. Immigration and integration. First, immigration. The Sweden Democrats have gained significant support by focusing on anti-immigration rhetoric, in which other parties differ on how immigration should be allowed. Second, integration. The challenges of integration are the social segregation, unemployment among immigrants, crime in the suburbs, are all essential to the debate of integration. Welfare and public services. Sweden's generous welfare is under pressure from an aging population, rising costs, and debates over efficiency. Conflicts arise whether to preserve state-run services, allow private providers for education and healthcare, and reduce public spending versus raising taxes. Sweden society. Healthcare is largely tax funded.
6 minutes.
Reports from the World Health Organization and the OECD, I don't remember what that stands for, but confirms Sweden provides easy access to high quality healthcare, but in that same aspect they kind of lack in like base level basic care etiquette. Like they don't, how if you were to go to our every clinic, they're not as quick in those places, but their main hospitals are very good. Karolinska University Hospital is ranked the 7th best hospital out of 2,400 hospitals in 30 different countries. The average lifespan among Swedes is now 84.9 years for women and 81.58 years for men. Just as America has the Department of Healthcare, Sweden's decentralized government has national boards of health and welfare that compiles information and develops standards to ensure good health, social welfare, and high quality health and social care for the whole population. Dental care for local citizens is paid for by regional councils, and in some cases local councils or municipal governments. But the bulk of health and medical costs in Sweden are paid for by regional taxes. Overall, the government in 2024 spent 113 billion krona in 2022. And their education is kind of hard to understand, but when you start at the age of 6, you have to go to school for at least 10 years. And there's a lot of different paths you can go instead of just going from elementary school to middle school and high school. But when you get into the 9th grade, if you can test into higher education and already go into college, they push for that a lot more, with 85% of 9th graders going into higher education. They also go A to E before the F. So F is failing, A to E is all passing. They have 5 authorities within schools. The Ministry of Education and Research, the Swedish schools, I don't even know how to say that word. The National Agency for Education provides information about education, promotes understanding, administrators, public funding and grants. Religion in Sweden is actually not very important to them. They have been disconnected from government. The Church of Sweden has been out of the state since 2000, but most Swedish people don't find religion to be important, and the amount of people going to church is falling with newer generations because they're just not following in their footsteps. And then this is their official website. So, I was at the political economy, but Sweden's GDP is 558 billion. Sweden also has one of the highest overall credit ratings out of most countries. They have a AAA credit rating, but they're a strong, open, export-oriented country that typically maintains a trade surplus. And a trade surplus is the value of goods that you export is greater than the goods that you import. And they also have a ceiling for public spending. And that first started in 1996, accompanied by a surplus goal. Public financial savings is measured in relation to the GDP. Sweden is also a highly developed mixed market. We are also a mixed market. And further, they strayed further, I don't remember this slide before this came out, but their general foreign policy approach, they've always mainly been neutral, with some notable wars they were neutral in, being World War I and II, also the Cold War. But they were not neutral for, like, not very many. Most of their wars they were neutral. They joined the European Union in 1995, but they did not join the Eurozone, using krona instead of euro.
Q,
And their
just,
current issues.
Q, just a heads up, you're well over 10 minutes, you're at 11:20.
Okay.
So that means you can continue to go on here,
But I gotta redo it.
but you'll have to redo it.
Alright. But the current issues are the healthcare system is under pressure with record-long line times. They also have a housing affordability crisis. Economic challenges, there's rising unemployment, and they have to implement tax cuts and government initiatives because of the U.S. tariffs. And they have security zones that can lead to ethnic profiling and abuse of power because it's a police act, and security zones that they don't need any concrete suspicion to search you. And that has them raising concerns of civil liberties and human rights. Bibliography, test questions. The test questions are, which two notable wars was Sweden neutral in? World War I and Cold War. Napoleonic War, the Great Northern War, Kuwaiti-Rashidi War, and Anglo-Arab War. It's A. The second question is C, who holds the most political power as the Prime Minister. The GDP of Sweden is 585 billion. The currency of Sweden is named krona, and Sweden stayed not aligned in foreign relations for over 200 years.
What were the answers for three?
Huh?
What were the answers for just
For 2 and 3. For 2 it was Prime Minister, so it's C.
Well, what is the answers